everyone. Welcome to our fourth segment on Senay Conversation. Today, I'll not have a guest as I prepared a commentary on the state of advocacy for a cause that's very close to my heart. We all know Ethiopia is at a very crucial juncture at the moment. There has been a lot of targeted genocide, massacres, atrocities, but more importantly, for the past almost 5 years or more, Ethiopia has been under war. First, the Northern Ethiopian War that started on November 4, 2020. That culminated on November 4, 2022. And within 3 months, another war commenced against Amharas, that is from April 2023. War on Amhara is still ongoing, that's waged by the regime in Ethiopia. It's not just that, there has been an ongoing resistance from the Ethiopian people against this regime in Ethiopia for over 35 years. This is including the EPRDF regime that took over in 1991 and governed Ethiopia illegally right up to 2018, and the so-called reform gave us the Prosperity Party, which is really a modified EPRDF with a few administrative changes and some major changes within the ruling party itself, but without any significant changes when it comes to the system itself, which the people were struggling against for over 3 decades. So it's amid all this situation now where the regime is promising a national dialogue and also a possibility that it might completely change the governance, a system that the people were fighting for over 3 decades. Now, on the surface, this sounds like a great idea because we're against the ethnic federalism system, not just because it's ethnic federalism. I know there are parts of the world where ethnic federalism is practiced in a way, which means just some geographic areas that are mainly administered by certain ethnic, groups. But there is no system that is as horrific, as restricting, as discriminating as the one that is in Ethiopia, because in other parts of the world where administrative units might seem like ethnic, let's say, for example, UK, you have England, you have Scotland, you have Wales, and you have Ireland, which predominantly, parallels with English people, Scottish people, Welsh people, and Irish people. But the thing is, the way these areas are governed, they do not necessarily give a specific right. For example, in England, there isn't any rule that says English people have more right than Irish, Welsh, or Scottish people in London just because it is situated in England. Every UK citizen have equal rights across the territories of UK. That's just an example, for example. So a lot of the supporters of the current ethnic apartheid system in Ethiopia would like to give examples, for example, of Switzerland, UK, etc. Whereas in reality, it's not just the fact that states are labeled for a certain group of people that speak the same language or ethnic identity. It's not just the labeling. The way it is instilled in Ethiopia, these groups have more rights than the others. So there is otherness included in it. And it's not, doesn't just restrict services. It doesn't just restrict movement. It actually amounts to getting killed, and in a horrific way. After 35 years of propagating hate against one another and also making it systemic through, different levels of legal framework, including the federal constitution and the local constitutions, the regional constitutions, it sets it completely apart from whatever might resemble in the world out there, whatever system that might resemble ethnic, the one what's going on and being being practiced in Ethiopia is the worst form of, for the lack of a better word, apartheid. Uh, right now in the 21st century. So I say we're on a very critical juncture because the doers, the movers, the shakers, the vanguards of the system are promising to dismantling it without any access for those who've been hurt because of it to be part of the dismantling, because there's absolutely no trust between the regime and the victims who've had to carry the brunt of the horrors of the system for over 35 years. And after going through all kinds of struggle, rallying, peaceful struggle, uh, different kinds of civil disobedience, advocacy, and then up to armed struggle. So the people, the Ethiopian people, and specifically the very targeted Amhara people and other communities in Ethiopia that are targeted because of the system, have tried all kinds of resistance against this system. So at such a very important stage, to be asked to trust the perpetrators of this same system that made the people bleed, it indeed is a very, very critical time. And this is amid the situation where the regime is almost losing control, almost being out of control because it lost monopoly of violence. There are a number of groups that are already armed at a very high volume, and also are engaging militarily across Ethiopia. And it is at this time that the regime is requesting trust from the people while not stopping the war, while still targeting targeted communities. For example, Amharas, Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, and other minorities across the country, while still targeting them, while still detaining them, while still targeting human rights defenders, journalists, humanitarian aid officers. There are a number of several people, over 250 documented detainees. This without not including those that are, held in illegal detention centers that were associated with a state of emergency but have never been dismantled. The state of emergency that was imposed in August 2023, few months after the war on Amhara was waged. And concentration camps, this is absolutely kept under wraps. Usually, now and then there are leaked footages that come out. Very concerning situation where these are not monitored. There are no observers. There is no legal procedure at concentration camps. So there are hundreds of thousands that are suffering because of this law, because the regime is, like illegally detaining people. But then also there are those that are, booked through the legal system, but were held illegally, not because they trespassed any of the criminal codes of the nation, but because of either their political involvement or because they're human rights defenders. They try to expose the Amhara genocide. They try to expose Amhara genocide or targeting of other communities. Or they try to give access to IDPs towards humanitarian aid, or access to journalists so that their stories are heard. So when you look at all these people that are still being targeted, and the war is still ongoing, there are targeted massacres still happening even post-election. We can't all forget what was happening in RC. There's still people being killed, Orthodox Christians targeted and horrifically killed since 1st of June 2026, apparently the same day that the election was ongoing. There is a targeted, organized, and coordinated massacre that's ongoing in Dera, Shawa, against Amharas, and this is coordinated by the named state actors, so-called Shane or OLA, but a lot of the victims nowadays actually confess that, indicate that these are actually informal state actors that appear to be Shane or OLA. And also, ACLED has reported over 90 military engagement locations across the Amhara region, just during election. This was, the election that was held just a month ago, 1st of June 2026. So when you look at all this situation, that the nation is embroiled in all these problems, almost no constituents can actually take their time and involve themselves in such a way that it can meaningfully design a better system so that Ethiopians and Ethiopia can get out of this quagmire. But unfortunately, what is being done is Ethiopians are being pressured into trusting the regime that has been affecting them, that has been targeting them for over 3 decades. So it is because of this critical juncture that I decided, okay, we're not having a guest today. We might take, I might cover the whole thing on the same program, or we might have a part 2. But this is such a crucial time to understand our advocacy and diplomacy is crucial in terms of supporting our people back home, because, like I said, without any corrective measures, without justice, without understanding who was the direct perpetrator, we're now requesting people just generally being, being condemned to some sort of negative outcome just because they supported a certain political party, just because they're a certain identity. No, that's being worse than what EPRDF and Prosperity Party did to Ethiopians, and specifically Amharas, because we're talking about the Amhara genocide now. No, it's not because you just support TPLF or you just support Amhara Prosperity Party or Oromo Prosperity Party or in general EPRDF or Prosperity Party. No, that's not the case. The case is there are people who need to be identified. It is sad that some people would choose to support such a divisive, ultra radical parties, but it's their right. But there needs to be a process where actual perpetrators under the auspices of these criminal parties are identified and brought to justice before any discussion of dismantling the system can be promised by the regime itself. Anyone can talk about dismantling the system. Anyone can be given the right as long as there is mandate from the people. But the people who used this system to cause genocide, to bleed the people, cannot be given a blanket trust to absolutely dismantle it, because there is absolutely no guarantee they would do that, given that this system is the source of their bread and butter. That's why it makes it very critical. So now, what I want to cover today is, let's say, the topic of the commentary itself is persistent advocacy as a pillar for a just cause. So why am I talking about persistent advocacy, especially with regards to just cause? When your cause is just, it doesn't necessarily mean that you immediately become a benefactor. Everybody would become a benefactor by the way of, removing a repressive regime and everybody, hopefully would live in a democratic system where economically, politically, and socially, you could live freely, liberally. That's, that's the goal of any freedom movement or advocacy for freedom and liberty. But in terms of financial gain, in terms of power, in terms of anything gratifying that would come quickly, that you will not find from supporting a just cause. Coincidentally, there are times where people, groups, and institutions and their people reward you for fighting for a just cause, but that happens once in a blue moon. Fighting for a just cause is extremely difficult because you probably do it in a voluntary basis. B, when there are no certain interest groups that don't necessarily put in the funding, because a just cause is a matter of getting justice. It's a matter of turning things into towards a fair reality. And it's completely different from fighting for a cause that is attached with some kind of interest group. If there are certain groups that could benefit with the outcome, apart from just a democratic system, apart from just liberating people, then things move really fast because you get the fund injection, you'd get the media would be interested, and everything will go viral quickly. But when you're struggling to push a just cause, then persistence matters. If you're persistent, things will add up, and things will add up, and things that remain hidden, layer by layer, would be exposed. But you can't just snap your finger and make it a reality, because it doesn't come with an instant gratification. And stopping the genocide against Amharas is the most just cause I could think of right now. And I utterly believe in this cause because I've seen how horrific the killings were, how horrific the targeting was, how systemic the situation is. And so I fully believe in it. And that's why I sacrifice my time, my effort, anything I could do really to make sure that this crime is exposed and stopped. So, but because there is no mechanism, there's no specific funding, there's no powerful allies that would make it happen. It is the slow process of persistent advocacy and making it collectively in a unified way that would actually, provide the situation where certain milestones will start appearing. So milestones are, that help realize the objective of the advocacy. In this case, exposing the Amhara genocide, making the world understand and Ethiopians themselves understand, not only just Amharas, that this system may currently be systematically targeting Amharas, but the way it is set up for a country that has 84 plus ethnic identities, and three Abrahamic religions that are very indigenous or to the nation, because all three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, were introduced to Ethiopia at a very, very early stage of their first recorded existence. So, for all intents and purposes, we could say that the Abrahamic religions are indigenous to Ethiopia. So, when you have this crisscrossing of three religions across being practiced by 84 different ethnic groups, and there are all kinds of interest groupings that are happening because the system cannot handle individual-based rights. The system cannot handle to equally, care for citizens, because it's set up in such a way that it's heavily concentrates on group rights, and at that specifically to the group that holds power, because everything is set up in such a way that a clique that holds power can actually make others bleed without fear of any accountability. That's how rotten the system is. So knowing this, it's very important to keep on working at it, to be persistent, so that we get these certain milestones that would show our people it's not for nothing. It is worth it. So before today, I'll give 9 interesting examples of milestones in the Amhara movement, but this is part and parcel of the journey of making Ethiopia fair, making Ethiopia democratic, making Ethiopia humane again. Because ever since the system is instilled or imposed in the country, the nation has stopped acting like a human nation. Not there isn't even an equally agreed or historically valid code for the country. Only a few cliques came together and came up with what they call constitution, which is really an illegal document that is imposed on the people, that actually legally that gives the legal framework for the commission of genocide and identity-based targeting, religion-based targeting, etc. So today, again, I'm looking at persistence is needed when you are supporting a just cause. So that's the main message of today's commentary. So persistent advocacy as a pillar of a just cause. Now, just before I actually talk about this, I want to give these 9 specific examples of what Amhara advocates did, very notable. So if I mention the meeting or if I mention the testimony, it's because that specific meeting or testimony or media appearance led to a solid outcome. These 9 examples have solid outcome, but it doesn't mean that these are the only time these kinds of advocacies have been done. So many milestones were passed in this multifaceted struggle to stop this very hidden genocide against the Amhara people. But today I'm choosing to pick 9 examples. I chose examples that had impact. There are thousands of instances where meetings were undertaken with mayors, staffers, senators, representatives, members of parliaments in UK, EU, Australia, New Zealand, and House representatives in the US, and members of parliaments in Canada, government officials across the globe. And I'm saying this not just to exaggerate what Amhara advocacy has done over the past 15 years, but it's because I know a lot of these events on the background. There is a huge network where we support each other, where we discuss, where we present our facts, where we build our, the body of evidence, one presentation at a time, one meeting at a time, one rally at a time, one email at a time. And we don't act as an individual. Whatever I do becomes an input to what the next advocate does. What the next advocate does becomes an input to what I do. But it is unfortunate only a few of our advocates are known upfront on the international media or even on the local media, or even have people that come out and discuss these issues on media. But that absolutely doesn't mean that these are the only people that are working on the cause. So that's why this one of the most important reason why I'm giving this commentary It is to show that persistence is needed when you advocate for a just cause, because it might seem like it's still water, it's all stagnant and nothing is happening. But in reality, everything is building up. That's one. And the second thing is that as things build up, as more advocates go out and do these things day by day by day, they're convincing more people to be part of that movement. And just because you don't see those people, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. So if I'm talking about these 9 examples that I'm giving you now, these are just to my knowledge. There might be that other examples, meetings that lead to a specific outcome, presentations that lead to a specific outcome. But that doesn't mean that thousands of similar events to the 9 that I mentioned didn't happen. It doesn't mean that. So, but these examples are chosen because they are associated with an outcome and impact. Do not get me wrong, for these 9 examples to happen, the persistent advocacy of every involved person, whether on social media, rally, email, or doing actual physical meetings, matter. Advocacy and diplomacy is like a Russian roulette. You don't know who will end up taking the shot, but every specific action builds towards that shot. Let's not take this literally, as in this case, the shot fired will be, a blow to the regime that's perpetrating the genocide, not the advocate themselves. So, okay, now that we have established that the following are just examples, I'll quickly go through them. But before I talk about these 9 examples, I want to show you a few slides. This is because the major thing that I'm going to reiterate, address today, is that we need persistence to stand for a just cause. There is a lot of frustration. People think things are stagnant, things are not happening, or sometimes you move one step and then 2 steps backwards because of a lot of the impacts we want to see from the international community are tempered with their own national interests, with their own geopolitical plans, policies. And also just because every country is busy, the economy is difficult, the timing is difficult. A lot of nations are dealing with their own internal turmoil. So sometimes it just means that everybody's busy with their own issue as well. It doesn't matter whether they're poor countries, middle income countries, or rich countries, or powerful countries. So there's also a lot of prioritization ongoing whenever there is something big flares up elsewhere in the world. Even if you built up your advocacy steadily and you are about to break that surface water, sometimes unfortunately major things like the Russian-Ukraine war happened, Gaza, the Hamas incident, and then the war in Gaza happened, and then the incident, the situation, the war in Iran happened, and then these are all major issues that that on their own are major conflicts that affect people from those areas, and my heart goes out to them for those causes that were buried and who were really steadily working towards being seen. And also, for example, what's happening in Sudan, actually, as well. Then at a very critical time, there is that effect of, cold splash, where because the major actors are always very much interested in those cases that are already very overt, where they're already very involved. Therefore, but as you can see, the case Ethiopia itself has become one of a target geography because of how the situation in Iran developed, and because of also you have a similar situation building up, just like Hormuz Strait. The Bab el Mandeb Strait is also extremely important for global trade. and a lot of powerful countries, both on the East Bloc and on the West Bloc, and new Middle Eastern powerhouses are also very interested in the situation developing in Horn of Africa. And even if we don't have access to sea as a nation, but one of the biggest airspaces that kind of aligns with the strait, the Bab el Mandeb Strait, exists within Ethiopia. So we can see that it's extremely likely that cases would not continue to be buried, causes within Ethiopia, because the whole region itself has become geopolitically important as opposed to 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Whereas Horn of Africa used to be secondary to whatever happens in Egypt. It used to be kind of a backstop rather than a major area of interest itself. Now, because of how forces in Yemen plan to are possibly a proxy for Iran, and so a similar situation like Hormuz could happen in Bab el Mandeb. So that the whole situation makes the Horn of Africa geopolitically important. So that kind of tempers the factor where major global issues used to splash cold water on the steadily building up advocacies that were ongoing in the Horn of Africa. And one of the major causes that actually have steadily been building towards exposing the crime, towards unifying, networking the people to fighting the crime of Amhara genocide is the Amhara cause. So now that we've established this, we talk about the need of persistence, and we talked about the importance of advocacy. And also now that we know that people have completely moved on from locally, trying to peacefully mobilize their people into armed struggle because of no fault of theirs, because of how every other avenue has been closed off by the regime itself. So now that we know this has been ongoing, why geopolitically Ethiopia being geopolitically not important, until recently, the people targeted Amharas being, for over 3 decades being, removed from power, so that there is no avenue where they can advocate themselves. There is no platform where they can easily communicate their truths. So all that is part of the reason why the advocacy is taking a long time, and the struggle itself as a whole, not just the advocacy and the diplomacy, but generally the whole act of removing this genocidal regime, why it took over 3 decades, because this is a question to be had. We know the TPLF struggle took 17 years to remove the dark regime. And there's also, I know that there are a lot of underlying factors. There were a lot of other Ethiopians, Amharas, Oromos, and also others who were just sick and tired of the conscription, the fighting, the war, and those, and also the red terror and other factors who were against the regime. So it wasn't just the work of TPLF. The people actually rejected Derg themselves. So that is a factor. But also people are more unified than the time Ethiopians spent under this ethnic federalism. So a lot of people are frustrated because we're going upwards of 35 years now under this very divisive, very genocidal system. At some point, during the Kennedy movement up to Gimbo Sabat, people more or less were unified. But after that, the pan-Ethiopian movement almost gave up because there wasn't any serious actor who actually wanted to see through the dismantling of the system. It was sort of like a lifestyle for a lot of pan-Ethiopian oppositions. So even those that have not been organized, along their ethnic identity for the longest time, people like Amharas, Kurages, etc., started organizing because it became a matter of survival. So still, it's a big question. Such a horrific system, um, 35 years and counting, even more. So, and a lot of people have burned out. A lot of people give their efforts. A lot of people get their time and money, and some died without, seeing this change. A change that they have spent a lot of their time, money, and then even some of them their lives. So it could be frustrating. So let's look into the actual background. Let's take a few slides, look at the background, and then for the good news, I want to sample these 9 specific milestones. They're not necessarily major. They're not necessarily the only ones. This as a producer of this podcast, these are the ones that I know of. These are the ones that I supported on the background. Some of them have nothing to do with, or just shared the news because I saw it and it's an excellent work. But mind you, there are thousands of such efforts that have been ongoing, but not every presentation leads to impact. One presentation will lead to a next presentation that might facilitate another presentation that informs more people that need to hear, the story. But then it comes to a point, it's a cascading effect, a domino effect, where it comes to a point that one meeting, that one hearing, that one later ends up bringing an impact. So these are just examples. Before I do that, let me quickly show you a few things why why it's so difficult, why it took over 35 years. Because this is not just normal struggle. This is not a situation where the people can come as one and fight against a given enemy, whether it's a tyrannical regime or a democratic government. No, that's not the case. In this case, it is a situation where the system works against the people. The system divides the people. The system makes you feel like every other group is your enemy. So it sustains itself by making you fight one another. So this is one example so I'm borrowing slides from Genocide Prevention in Ethiopia. This is an organization that I volunteer with and co-founded with my colleagues. A lot of people do a lot of work in this organization trying to, document atrocities, targeting all kinds of crimes against humanity, trying to find pathways to take it into a legal system, whether locally after freedom or liberty in Ethiopia, or internationally in international avenues of justice, whether it's international courts or different human rights working groups, etc. We do work on advocacy, diplomacy, anything that leads to the dismantling of this genocidal system, and also the exposing of this horrific crime. So the story starts with the imposition of the ethnic federalism system. What you see on the left side here is the provincial administrative units that Ethiopia was using right before the EPRDF took control. And what you see on the right is the ethnic-based states that were imposed in the country. Mind you, there has been no consensus by the people. These regions were numerically named until the system took hold. So that, they were very, very, very tricky the way they went on about it. They kind of crept up on people because they knew that people would readily reject it if these states were instantly labeled by ethnic groups. So what is so tragic in case of Amhara Targeting is that I'll just quickly show you here. You can see that massive Amhara populations were disfranchised across the country. So about 1.5 million Amharas instantly became stateless. The minute Walqait Agade Humara Talant has been annexed to Tigray, and then it has been forcibly annexed way before the constitution itself was legally imposed, where we know that there was a retrospective referendums, etc., that were done to try and make it look like legal, but in reality, the minute this delineation was installed, from what you see here, for areas that were labeled as Gondar were instantly pushed into Tigray. And it's not just that they were administratively gone into Tigray. That's not the problem. Because, like I said earlier, the example in UK, Welsh people, Scottish people, or Irish people in London or in England, as long as they are UK citizens, are not treated differently from English people in England, and vice versa in Scotland, Wales, etc. But it's absolutely different when you come to Ethiopia. The local constitutions legally award these regions to the people they label the regions for. So the land in Tigray only belonged to Tigrayans. And that's what the local constitution actually says. The states that is labeled for Oromo region, which recently is being italicized as stylized as Oromia to turn it into a kind of a nation. In a way that it could be labeled as a national name, because there's always that plan to balkanize Ethiopia. One of the nation states that the EPRDF government thought of, was Oromia. So, but I will leave that for later. So basically, you can see that 1.5 million Amharas instantly got affected the minute this area Walqait Agade Umara was annexed. 40% of the entire Benishangul Gumuz region are Amharas, and they instantly became homeless. This population is over 10 million, and over 60% are Amharas. So at least 6 million people instantly became potentially homeless, because Addis Ababa started as its own region, Region 40, and without any fanfare, without people actually feeling it happen, it transited into being just a city, not its own region. And now it's actively being claimed by the Oromo region as being a city that belongs to the Oromo region. So that instantly would make all non-Oromo people homeless in the city. Okay, let's look at other cases. Over 4 million Amharas that live in the former SNNP region, because now newer regions have come up in that area, became homeless. So basically, if the procedure, what happened was the minute this this system has been imposed, this many Amharas instantly lost their right. And when I talk about losing rights, I don't mean just, just the right to speak to a judge or etc. in their language. That happens, but that's just the least of it. It's actually getting targeted, getting killed, getting skinned. I'm not exaggerating. These are all the things that happened. Children being torn out of their mother's wombs. This is what it entailed, the imposition of the system. Let me go further. Not only the Amharas in the other regions, the Amharas that are within the region itself. This is the region named for Amharas, the so-called Amhara region. About 25 million Amharas, but officially labeled as 19 million for reasons unknown, and then partly because it's part of the statistical genocide. Amhara region is the only region that does not proclaim the region belongs to the main nation for which the region itself is labeled for. So basically, the local constitution in Amhara region says that the region belongs to the people that reside in the region, specifically only in case of Amharas. So when you look at the full picture, not only the ethnic federalism system being practiced in Ethiopia is a horrific apartheid-like system. That's for anyone who's outside of their designated region. But specifically, this is why we say it's specifically anti-Amhara, because at least other groups somehow have lands that are labeled for them. Don't be fooled because the Amhara region says Amhara. That shouldn't fool you, because the local constitution in Amhara region actually says the region belongs to the people that live in it. Whereas all the local constitutions of other major regions, which are named for a single ethnic group, award that region for that ethnic group. So basically, this is where you see the intent for the genocide, for Amhara genocide. Okay. If this specific targeting didn't exist, if this was imposed in goodwill, in good faith, as it was described in the procedure for which when they did the administrative delineation, if the procedure to delineate ethnic regions was applied without any bias, discrimination, or preemptive targeting of Amharas, 75% of the Ethiopian nation would have fallen under Amhara region. During the census undertaken before the EPRDF or PP regime took place, the population of Amhara people was on par with the population of Oromo people. Within just 10 years, a drop of over 13 million occurred, an indication that deliberate demographic tampering was done to limit political representation and significantly reduce the means for Amhara people to defend themselves. So this is where you see the intent, and this is also why it makes it very hidden, very difficult to expose. I want our advocates to know this. It's not a walk in the park. It's very difficult for the international community, for human rights organizations, and for others to actually discern what goes on. It's very difficult for them to see when a conflict happens and when Oromos, Amaras, Tigrayans, Sidamas, Somalis, Afaris, etc. are involved. They don't know the different layers of targeting. There is a hurt that happens to all Ethiopians just because of how horrific the system is. This affects all Ethiopians. But there is also a different hidden layer of hurt that happens only to Amaras just because they literally are stripped of any rights within the country. There isn't, a mile of land that is legally awarded to Amhara people. It systematically is stripped of them. So this is the most important thing that advocates that try to expose Amhara genocide need to learn. The framework, the legal framework, it appears to be legal, but it's actually illegal, the way the constitution was imposed. But regardless, for our intents and purposes, the international community believes and thinks that Ethiopia has a legal constitution. So if we take it that way, that framework specifically targets Amharas. So this is why advocates cannot stop to persist, cannot frustrate, cannot give up, because this is a seriously, truly dangerous plan that needs to be aborted. And if for any action, if there's no reaction, it keeps on happening. It's a law of physics, right? So you need to react to stop it. So otherwise, if you don't react, if objects that are on the move keep on moving, objects that have stopped will stop. They don't move. So there's a plan for genocide. If advocates and if people who don't want to be eradicated don't stop it, it will continue. And the force that needs to stop this crime, if you give up, if you stop doing it, then nothing can move it forward. It just stops. It's law of physics. Okay, so on the left, you will see that all the different incidents that very, very few samples of incidents that were reported during the TPLF-led EPRDF era. And then there is also the OPP-led PP era incidents. I've only shown a few snapshots. This is only to show that nothing is forgotten. Everything is being documented. There are groups, as time passes by, the evidence, the database, it keeps on building up. It doesn't matter who you kill, it doesn't matter who you detain, the evidence keeps on building up. And it's not just that it keeps on building up, it gets better and better because we have better tools better digital tools, better technology, better methodology that allows us to retrospectively fill in gaps of what happened. Better ways of accessing witnesses, better ways of developing platforms that allows us to track what happened in the past, not just what's currently happening. So this is just really to give you a snapshot. So how's a crime of such magnitude still shrouded in secrecy? So this is another issue that really frustrates advocates. The case of Amhara genocide is extremely frustrating for many. Actually, some turned on their own advocates because they keep on seeing no movement, like no outcome. We are at it for, there are those who started at the time of Professor Assad, a brilliant surgeon who foreshadowed the dangerous situation that's coming against Amharas as being planned, and started the All Amhara organization, political organization in mid-90s. Ever since then, for over 3 decades, people keep on trying to show how horrific the crime is, how extremely repressive the targeting is for Amhara people in Ethiopia. But again and again, things reset. They get to a point where it seems like they're gonna boil over, but things reset. So we have to see what are the ways the capability of Amhara people are curbed so that this situation is not changed for the better.